everyone. This is Cole from the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy, and here with me is an administrative fellow from UI Health. Karl, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Cole, thank you so much for having me. My name is Karl Gieseke. I'm one of the two administrative fellows at UI Health in Chicago, Illinois. Got my master's degree, my MHA from UIC just last year. So really happy to be here and share a little bit of the story.
Congratulations on that. We love having people on from the Illinois and Wisconsin region up there. I've never gotten out there myself, but I've been really hoping to have an excuse to go out there soon. I know that the ACHE conference is in Chicago this year. Does that make it easier for you to attend the ACHE conferences?
Most definitely. I've been able to go. This will be my second time going. I went as a program assistant a couple of years ago, and it was just such an incredibly enriching experience. So looking forward to going back. It's nice that it's in our backyard. Saves a little bit on hotel costs, but we're spoiled too with the food. So if you find one reason to ever come out here, it's got to be for the food.
I'm gonna have to come out there soon. Hopefully, next year is when I'm planning to do my first ACHE. Hopefully, so you had a bit of an untraditional, I guess untraditional is what it's called, path into healthcare administration. You started off in the military for about 10 years, right?
I did, yeah. I did almost 11 years in military medicine. It kind of brought me on both coasts and then 3 deployments as well. It's interesting. The Marine Corps doesn't have their own medical component, so they use Navy doctors, nurses, and corpsmen, which was my job to be their frontline medical staff. So I actually got my career started out in Bethesda, Maryland. I worked in labor and delivery there. Did my first deployment from Bethesda to Kuwait. I worked in a expeditionary medical facility in casualty receiving, kind of at the height of the Iraq War. So we'd bring people in, stabilize them, then get them shipped off to Landstuhl. From there, they'd be stabilized further and then shipped back to the States. After that, I ended up going out to 1st Marine Division in Camp Pendleton, California, and I was more of a combat corpsman. So I integrated with a Marine Corps unit, did 2 deployments from there, one to Afghanistan and Southern Helmand, and then finished my career up at Great Lakes. So I ran the primary care clinic that was on board Navy boot camp, actually.
Wow. So you've probably seen a lot of different things over in the United States, but as well as overseas, you've probably been through a lot of different experiences.
Most
That's
definitely.
incredible.
It was rich, to say the absolute least. And yeah, definitely something I'll never regret.
Well, we're really happy to have you, on to discuss all of that. One of the first questions I want to ask you is, you some of the students in your same position, probably not in your exact same position, but those who switched careers later in life, I guess switch careers, even though you're kind of continuing on, but they go back to undergrad, they go through grad school. You said you'd never regret it. I want to know, how has your past experiences helped you in ways that you might not have expected?
I think a big part of it is just a different lens. Attacking grad school later in life I think it was the right time for me to do it. I look back, I turned 25 in Afghanistan, sitting on a post, and it was kind of a weird point in my life where I go, here I am, I'm a quarter of a century years old, and what am I really doing with my life? And now, like I said, it's just a little bit of a different drive. Going to grad school a little bit later too. I had a little bit more to fight for, having a baby that was born during my grad school time, and that's just a little bit extra motivation. So definitely that part of it, just coming in from a different angle. And also I think the work ethic and the never quit mentality that's instilled in you in the military is just kind of part of it. One of the things that we love to say on the infantry side is embrace the suck. And there are days that were hard, obviously, in grad school, and there are going to be more days ahead during everybody's career. So get comfortable with it, and embrace the lack of comfort and thrive in it.
Why do you think people struggle sometimes starting something new or going back to something different after having experience? Because you've kind of been through that yourself. Why do you think it's a struggle for some people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, to your point, is right after I got out, I went to pro baseball umpire school and thought that baseball was going to be my career. Thought I was going to chase the dream, and then 2 years on the road doing that professionally, I really kind of missed healthcare. So I started back at the bedside as a patient care tech while I went through undergrad, and even that, it's the fear of the unknown. When I started undergrad, my program was in physical therapy. as a PTA, and even that was scary. Again, coming in as somebody who's older, and it's like I said, just the fear of the unknown, I think, is what really kind of derails people. So healthcare administration wasn't even on my radar until after I'd gotten a year of undergrad done, and then kind of switched to the healthcare management route. Only because the community college I was going to had an agreement with one of the four universities that were near me. But it's scary, and grad school was a whole different kind of level of fear. Never really thought of myself as going to grad school. Again, going back to when I was 25 years old, sitting on post in Afghanistan, grad school was the furthest thing from my mind.
Hmm.
Coming out of the 2019 baseball season, grad school was the furthest thing from my mind. Working as a patient care tech during COVID in critical care, grad school was the furthest thing on my mind until one specific day that really kind of changed my entire outlook on it. But it was scary, and it's uncomfortable, and it's difficult to make those types of decisions, especially when you're a little bit older, especially when you're pivoting to something totally new. I think something that I've heard a lot, and a lot, from other people as well, who maybe go that route straight from high school to undergrad to grad school, which is incredible. The maturity that it takes to do that at that age will never ever cease to amaze me, because it couldn't have been me. So to see that is super inspiring to me. But I think a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. Do we really belong here? And just getting over that and gaining that confidence as you go is, I guess, that's the what makes it all worth it, kind of in the end.
Can you tell us, if you're comfortable sharing, what that day was that kind of redefined what you were thinking? And then you said, I'm going to go and go to grad school and change up my whole kind of career.
Definitely. I'd always thought about the nursing route as well, or the PA route. I'm getting chills thinking of that day. I remember a day though during COVID, I was working in critical care in the ICU at the hospital I was working at, and I had just come out of a code, and was trying to scarf down some lunch real quick, and the charge nurse that was on that day had mentioned that one of the leaders in the organization had taken a massive bonus, and this was kind of a slap in the face of the people doing the work, because this was in the midst of our 401k match being cut, and part of some of our benefits being cut, and our COVID differential pay being cut. So it seemed really tone deaf at the time, and for lack of a better term, I was just angry about it. I just literally had come out of a room, I'm sweating, my face hurts from the N95, and that's the news I get. And kind of in my anger, I looked this person up, figured out what their credentials were, and it was like, well, I could do that. And then if I'm ever in that position to have to make that decision, that's not the one I'm going to make. I want to take care of the people that are doing the work. And that was really the nexus. And again, that kind of comes back from lessons I learned in the military. One of the things they preach is you got to take care of your people. You take care of your own. And that's just something I've kind of taken with me. So that was kind of the turning point. And, went home that night, took a shower, and was just kind of fuming, and said, I think I might go to grad school to my wife. And she said, you should do it. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm smart enough to do that. She said, just try it. Take the GRE, try it, apply. And that's kind of how, oh, look where we are now.
Good for you. My wife does the same thing. I say, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to apply for this. And she's like, you just do it. Just do it. So it's wonderful to have that support. And I was going to ask you that question as well about that perspective that you had. I know a lot of people, probably including myself, to be honest, a little bit, would have said, oh, what can I do to get that bonus? But you had that different perspective. And I was going to ask where that came from, and it makes sense from the military, that taking care of your people perspective, like you said, that's a beautiful perspective to have. And I think that we need, I mean, I need to be more like that, in all honesty with you. It's challenging when you work so hard and you feel like you're not being, compensated enough to not want to say, oh, I'm going to get this so that I can be well off. But instead you're saying, I want to get this so I can help other people be taken care of. That's wonderful. Has that helped you in your fellowship applications and in your application to grad school, having that purpose? Has that benefited you?
I definitely think so. I mean, that's so much of my why. And, as we're at this point in the fellowship, as all the other, most of the other fellows in the country are, we're looking at the next step now. And some of that is really reflective, because you're really trying to figure out, I think we all had a why. Why did we apply to grad school? Why did we pursue a fellowship? And now it's, why am I in healthcare? And I think, for me, it's always been very patient focused. That's why I decided to be a Navy corpsman. I wanted to take care of people. And then, as you grow up, even in the military, as you gain rank, you get a little further away from taking care of people, and now you're taking care of the people that are taking care of people, and that becomes your why, taking care of your people. And that's still just very close to me. It's very, important to me to have that connection. So, take care of the people that are taking care of the people is kind of how I describe it. And I think having that purpose is really powerful when you can connect it to who you are as a person. I think that's probably the most beneficial thing. I remember during the hardest question I was asked during um, my interview for my fellowship came from the CEO of the organization, and he asked the question, "What are you most proud of on your resume?" And I was absolutely not prepared for that question, which is, I'm sure, partially by design. But
Mhm.
I think my answer is part of what got me the fellowship because it was raw, and it was kind of one of those moments where I was able to be my true authentic self with him. And I said, what I'm most proud of isn't on my resume. What I'm most proud of is that when I was in Afghanistan, I took the same care of the enemy that I took care of my people. So when I was treating my Marines, they got the same level of care as I gave to the Taliban members who had just been trying to kill us. So that just, I think that was a good reflection of my true drive and passion for healthcare and taking care of people and medicine and just doing it right and doing the right thing, even when maybe you don't have to. Because realistically, nobody probably would have known if I cut a corner on an enemy, but I would have known. And that is something that just kind of goes so against what I believe about medicine that I just couldn't do that.
I wanted to go back to something you said, that you had said that, to your wife, oh, I don't think I'm smart enough to do this, MHA. I've said similar things to my wife. Was it hard? Was it harder than you expected? Was it easier than you expected? What was the grad school like?
I think I was lucky. I didn't know what to expect, so everything was just kind of roll with it and take it how it is, and adapt to the situation, and do. It was about doing what I can, and even and obviously boot camp is much shorter than grad school, but there are days, but it's for anything. It's for life. When it gets hard, get through the next day. If the next day is too overwhelming, get through the next meal. If that's overwhelming, get through the next hour. And if you have to break
Mhm.
it down by minute, just get through that next minute, and that's your small win. Build off that small win, get through the next minute, take that next step forward. So I think I was lucky that I had no idea what to expect. I went in completely blind and for almost on a whim, so I think that almost benefited me a little bit. I didn't have a chance to psych myself out or worry about how hard it was
Yep.
going to be. It was almost like it all happened so fast that it was like, oh well, here we are. It's time to go. You don't really have much
Nice.
of a choice. So
Good for you. So that's also another tip. Don't psych yourself out. I think that's good.
yeah,
And yeah, you had that fortitude that you'd been trained with, and that helped you out, which is that's great. I like what you said about taking it minute by minute. That's very good advice.
there are some days that's just what you have to do, and every minute is a win. And you build off those wins, and the minutes turn into hours, and the hours turn into days, the days turn into weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So you build off those little wins and you just keep moving forward. And that doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked back because you are at some point, but you know, it's just about getting back to getting that momentum going forward.
So you graduated summa cum laude of your undergraduate program, which is excellent. You did well in grad school, a good MHA program. And so one of the questions I've been asking people, especially people like yourself with lots of experience and with good academic credentials, do you feel like you could have done the job that you're going into without a fellowship?
That's a great question. I think it's possible. And that's actually something that came up in another interview is what if you don't get a fellowship? What do you do? And it was, well, I have to figure something out. I have mouths to feed. I have myself to take care of. I've got a mortgage. Something will be figured out. And that doesn't mean it has to be, forever, but something will be figured out one way or the other. I don't think I would be prepared to step into a potential next role that I'm looking at without it. I think just the sponsorship you get from being an administrative fellow and the visibility you get within the organization is just it's so important, and it opens doors. It's super helpful to have people that are watching out for you and looking for you. That doesn't mean that it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination for somebody to work their way up into that at all. There are some just incredibly talented and brilliant people out there that don't do fellowships, and they do very well. I have friends from my program that didn't do fellowships, and they're doing just incredible things. And I love hearing about what they do. So for me, I'm not sure. I think, my motivation to do a fellowship was multifaceted. It's, as somebody who's a little bit older, I needed to I felt that I needed to kind of jumpstart my career, and obtaining a fellowship was a way to do that. And it's also, how do I work at this level in the civilian sector? I hadn't, the bedside is very different from healthcare administration, obviously. So how do I do that effectively, and just learn how to do that? Learn the politics of the office, for lack of a better term. Learn how to deal with barriers, and like I said, at the bedside, and especially in critical care or emergency medicine, it's very blunt, and that's not always how you can be, obviously, in the admin space.
I wanted to ask about the military in healthcare, for example. We're always looking to change things. We want to always look to improve. The military, I've heard, they like to follow their formula. There's a pecking order. They like to follow it very closely, which is one of the reasons why the U.S. military is so good. I've heard is because we follow everything to the letter. Is that a true, do you think, statement?
Absolutely. I mean, everything is very regimented, and like I said, there's a direct chain of command, and you don't talk to person C without going to person A and B, and that's just how it is. It's
Yeah.
like you said, it's a function of what makes us disciplined and makes us effective, because you need people that will just at the drop of a hat do exactly what you tell them to do. The civilian side is not like that as much. It's seldom that there are, at least on the administrative side, it's seldom that there are life and death decisions made, that in a vacuum. They're not immediate. You usually have a little bit of time to, or at least from what I've seen during my fellowship, there is a little bit of time to work and gather input and gather information and data to make the most informed decision. And like I said, going back to those office politics, something I still struggle with is knowing, can I go talk to this person without
That's what I
going
was
through
going
this
to ask
person
you.
first?
Is that,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely still a struggle of mine, and something I'm getting comfortable with being able to do. Knowing my place, and being able to trust that I wouldn't be in this position if those leaders didn't trust me. So
Hmm.
having that confidence, and being able to make those decisions for myself sometimes is something I'm still working on. It's been a work in progress.
Do you have any tips for individuals like myself? I mean, especially, you know, I've gotten better at it because I'm doing all these interviews and I'm meeting people. And so, if you're constantly like doing that, you get better at it. But like 6 months ago, I was terrified to speak with, my boss's boss, so how, are there any tips you can share that have helped you?
I think for me, just the more I do it, the easier it gets. I actually had a meeting with my preceptor today. We had our biweekly one-on-one today, and he kind of mentioned that the first time I had to present at our senior executive meeting, I was just like flying through, couldn't understand me because I was speaking so quickly. And then I had to present something yesterday that I was a little unfamiliar with, and he said, if you were nervous, it didn't seem like it. So took that as
Nice.
pretty high praise. I think
Good for
something that
you.
helped me too is during grad school, I was able to do 4 different case competitions, and that's a bit of a pressure cooker situation. Obviously, our team did fairly well in them, so I was really really proud of that. But that was my first time going up in public speaking in that arena was absolutely terrifying. And then as you move on in the rounds of the case comp, you present to more and more senior people, which turns up the heat a little bit, to say the absolute least. But the more you do it and the more comfortable you get with it, the easier it gets. There's no like, I don't think there's a magic answer to how to get comfortable with it. You just kind of got to keep rolling with it.
I appreciate that advice too for myself because, receiving that harsh feedback at first, that would be very challenging. I really appreciate your time coming on. We're trying to keep these below 25 minutes or really below 20 minutes, but I really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope we can have you back on again to discuss more. You have such a vast kind of knowledge and experience, and I feel like you're going to continue on a great trajectory. I know personally, I would love to have you as a chief people officer, or definitely in a leadership position. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you back on soon.
Sounds good. Absolutely look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time, Cole. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.